Hello and welcome back to the Alnwick Castle Podcast. I'm Daniel Watkins.
And I'm Deborah Beecroft.
And on today's episode, we'll be finding out how a university from Minnesota ended up having a campus here at Alnwick Castle.
The castle's links to America go back centuries, to the explorer George Percy, who settled in Jamestown in the 1600s, to the second Duke of Northumberland fighting in the Revolutionary War against George Washington's forces. Please go back and listen to episode 32 of the podcast to hear more about him. And in the 20th century, a long-lasting link was formed.
St Cloud State University has been part of life at the castle for over 40 years now, with hundreds of students and faculty passing through the gates. We spoke to Wade Sherman with St Cloud State University at Alnwick about how their Alnwick Castle programme started, what life is like for an American university student living in a medieval English castle, and more, including Wade's own part in Alnwick Castle's film history.
Here is that conversation. We hope you enjoy it, especially if you're listening from Minnesota. We are here today with Wade Sherman from St Cloud State University at Alnwick. Hello, Wade. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you all?
Very good, thank you.
Nice to have you here with us on the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we'll start at the beginning. How did that come to be an American university at Alnwick?
Do you know, the story of St. Cloud State at Alnwick Castle is kind of a fun one, and it even follows along with some of the most recent movies and TV shows. It follows really kind of the Downton Abbey story almost, that you had these incredible estates, and the First World War came. Following that, you didn't come back to the staffings that you used to have. And so then we come along to the Second World War, and the castle, their graces opened it up to a girls' school out of Jesmond, and it became a refuge for them during the war. At the end of the Second World War, we end up with the same situation in the United States as you do here in England and the United Kingdom, that you have these populations returning following the war. And what do we do with them? And so we find a huge boost in higher education, in particular in teacher training colleges. And at that point, the accommodation that had once been servants' quarters then converted into places for school children as a safe house, and then now becomes a teacher's training college for the Northeast, so Northumberland Teachers Training College. That progresses until the mid-70s, and as they're starting to amalgamate with Newcastle, St. Cloud in the meantime had started a education abroad, study abroad program in London. And what we find is that our students, who are much like Northumberland, that they come from a more rural population with a big city center not far off, they're struggling with the transition of not only going to another country, but then being placed in a big city like London, which is where we started our first programs. And that program, through some connections and, like all good things in this country, a conversation in the pub, turns into finding out that they are going to be closing down and amalgamating Northumberland Teachers Training College, and at which point we say, maybe we can work something out. And so they came up on a train, were able to meet with the Duke right away and start brainstorming ideas of how might this work to have a group of American students here in the UK. And so that's where we start, is back in 1976. And our original plan was to really be working with helping the current cohort of the Northumberland Teachers Training College to be able to have enough students to finish out that cohort. So that's where our first year or two are a little bit different than the program as we have known it that has run since then. So after that first year and kind of trial and working with Northumberland Teachers Training College, we have just kind of then run our own program here. So that's the long story of how we've been here.
You've mentioned that the students come from America. What is it like for them to come over to live in a castle?
I think each student has their own experience and they're often just overwhelmed by the opportunity. I do quite often have to remind them we're going to a castle, not a palace. There are parts that are still very much medieval. And so trying to create a modern university environment in a medieval building is sometimes a little bit of a challenge, but what a great opportunity. And the students just love it. And not only do they love the castle, but they love this community. And we've really grown to be a part of it. And we feel really blessed to be able to be here in Alnwick and so welcomed by the community.
And what do the students actually do when they're in Alnwick? What do they study? How long are they here for?
Really, we consider ourselves a branch campus of our main university, which is running about 14,000 students back in the United States. So we have accommodation for just over 60 students here in the castle. Anything that we would offer at the university could potentially be offered here. And so we do everything from travel and tourism to business to real estate to social work, just the whole gamut of anything that we would offer at the university. And that also then includes different community groups that we would work with in the United States. So, for example, the university has a women's center, and they bring over a group in the summer to look at women's issues. And so, anything that we would be doing as a university in the US, we have the potential of doing here and are excited to be offering it just in that different cultural expectation and understanding those cultural differences or similarities as it may be.
The university has changed since 1976 then in all of those different programs and centres it has. Is it fair to say the programme at Alnwick has changed along with the university, even if the castle environment stayed the same?
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. We have, and I think anybody has to change with times. And so, starting out working with the Northumberland Teachers Training College to offering initially what students would come for 9 months, that then turned into a 2-quarter or 6-month system. And that's actually when I was a student on the program. So I was here for 6 months. And now we run, because the university calendar changed, we run semesters rather than on a quarter system. So we're constantly evolving and finding new ways to fit in. That also includes our partnerships. And so our partner universities that we work with and just the whole world of international education as that's changed. That even includes most recently with COVID, figuring out how are we going to operate in a COVID world. And so all of those, we're constantly evolving, finding new ways to work as a university. And we're really fortunate to have this opportunity in place to do that.
You mentioned that you had sort of 60 almost beds for accommodation. Is it typical that you fill those up, or how many students do you typically get per semester, do you think?
It varies from year to year, and it's always hard to say in this post-COVID world of what things are going to look like. One of the big trends in international education is that students are wanting lots of experiences internationally, but for shorter periods. And so again, we're adapting with that. So in the summer, we do quite a few short-term programs. We're looking at some different modular systems, you name it. We're open to being flexible and adapting with the times.
Yeah, it's important to say that those bedrooms that Deborah mentioned, they're not rooms that were created as bedrooms for a university. These are rooms that have been part of the castle for a couple of 100 years. Can you talk a little bit about the parts of the castle that are now officially Minnesotan territory?
Yeah, so the space that we're in is pretty phenomenal. That a lot of the materials in it were actually transferred over into these areas, meaning Hunter's Block, Lion's Tower, and Upper and Lower Fosse. Were actually part of the very first renovation. For example, our main classroom has a beautiful Robert Adam fireplace in it. It wasn't where it was originally based in the castle, but again, as things have moved in different remodels of the castle, they've ended up in different places. A lot of the space that we're in was initially just off of the ducal suite. And so a lot of the servant rooms around there. In fact, our one classroom was once the kind of men's retiring room or smoking room that they would go to the point that you can look up into the wood beams still in that room and see the pulleys that would have held the lantern or hood over the billiard table. And so just all of these neat things that we're able to just kind of incorporate and recognize in different ways. So that's the majority of our space initially started as that servants' quarters. The other area that we are in the castle is Hunter's Block. And again, that would have been predominantly stable workers. And so really focusing and trying to keep the theme of that there. We've got a great picture from the King's visit and just some fun things up in that space. So just, seeing the state carriage out in the courtyard and keeping up with that theme, that we try to really relive some of the history while making our own. One of the fun things about my job, I never anticipated that I would be doing a remodel of a medieval castle. And we were still using a lot of the let's even go back to maybe the end of the Second World War when it was a teacher's training college. We were still using a lot of that material and equipment. So whether it was wardrobes or bed frames. And about 10 years ago now, we did a massive remodel of all of our spaces. And again, that concept of making a historical structure up to date and modern, but also protecting the historical integrity of the building. That we really want to emphasize that, this is an awesome place in its own right. We just need to have some different functionalities. So we focused on big things like technology, updates to student rooms, electrical wiring, and making sure all of that was in line and up to code. So all of that just kind of exciting in that regard.
You mentioned that you were one of these cohorts to the castle once upon a time. Is that how you ended up being here with St. Cloud in 2023? What's your role within this program?
Yeah, so I never anticipated coming back. So this is actually my third time back, or second time back, plus having been a student. So I was a student. It was my second year of university that I was a student here. I did have the opportunity to study abroad again as part of my university career in Costa Rica. And they had a graduate assistant role that really allowed me to come and do some postgraduate work, as well as assist with the operation and running of the facility at that time. So I was in that role for 2 years, at which point I went back to the US to finish my postgraduate degree. I was in a rather fortunate position that the person that held my job now was going to be returning to the US, and they were looking to hire someone new. And so I was in a little bit of a rare position. I was one of 2 or 3 people that were called to say, would you be interested in going back? And I thought, that would be fun for a year or two. And I'm just about on 20 years back in this role. So just love it. I love the Northeast. Alnwick is such a phenomenal community. And whether it's the people, whether it's the natural environment around us, everything just works for me. That it's a great place. And I do try to be really engaged in the community as well. So whether that's through community service, which is something that our students are expected to do, is to be engaged with the community, that they are able to do that. And I take pride in making sure to role model that as well.
And in terms of your role at Alnwick Castle, can you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do sort of on a day-to-day basis, or just general, your position here?
Yeah, so it's hard to put all the things in one spot. Everything from consoling a student that's having a difficult day to working with visas and immigration. Really, I end up being part of our international office in the United States, but I am the permanent kind of base of that here in the UK. So representing the university in that regard, predominantly administratively. And so any of the services that we would try to offer at the US, they would probably end up going through here in one way or the other. and then supporting our visiting faculty as well that are here for up to 9 months or a year, that kind of helping them acclimate, realize what resources are available, and go from there. And I do speak two languages. I speak both American English and British English, so you'll hear me say both resource and resource. I'm bilingual like that.
Nice.
And you've even played a part in one of the film productions that was made here at Alnwick during your time here. Can you tell us a little bit about your movie career?
Absolutely. And it's one of the phenomenal things is seeing the different filming that's gone on. So it was actually my first year back in about 2004, 2005. And the cool thing about it was Elizabeth with Anne-Marie Duff. And they had asked if I would be willing to be an extra. And I kind of wanted to know what that entailed. And they said, well, you have to be up at 6. I'm like, ooh, that's quite early in the morning. I'm not sure I want to do that for too long. Well, as it turned out, they said, well, instead of being an extra for 3 days, how about you be just an extra on 1 day, in which case we'll kill you off. And so I quickly proceeded through the day from being an extra to a named extra to a featured named extra, which was rather exciting. So I actually played Babington in that, and I didn't even know, I was in a dressing room, didn't even know who I was sat next to, but ended up being right next to Anne-Marie Duff and just having a normal conversation, not realizing what a phenomenal actress she was. And so, yeah, so if you see the Elizabeth that was done with Anne-Marie Duff, you'll see me leading the conspirators into the castle and taking a huge head of lettuce or cabbage to the head as I'm dragged to be beaten inside the castle. We've also had a lot of fun. St. Cloud may or may not be responsible for some movie bloopers. Maybe in the most recent Transformers film, we note that a window is open in one spot and not in another. That had nothing to do with students maybe watching the filming from the side. So it's been really fun to see all of the different movies come through here, whether it was some of the more recent ones or even seeing Harry Potter. And I remember being asked, wanted the inside of the windows to be glowing. And so the movie crew had paid for a couple of us to go stay in a B&B in town so they could put lights in our room all night so that while they were doing the evening filming. So it's been just a really unique and fun opportunity. Chris Pine used our brand new student common room as his dressing room and green room in the most recent filming. So just exciting stuff that we get to be kind of on the side and watch and see how it's going.
Moving on from filming a little bit, obviously the St. Cloud State University at Alnwick is in the UK, but it still does mark important American calendar days such as the 4th of July and Thanksgiving. What are those like happening in an English castle as opposed to being in America?
You know, and I'm probably a hard one to answer that because while I still 100% sound American, because I work with Americans all day, my mindset is much more British at this point. And so that sometimes creates some real cultural conflict for me. So for me, over here, it ends up being a rather ordinary day. But we have to also go back to more important conversations about US and UK relations. You know, we always talk about this special relationship that we have. And it's so true. We really do. And we are a people divided by a common language, but it is true. And so there are some differences. And it's just awesome to think about that. And I guess that's more of where I take the 4th of July. It's not thinking about Independence Day, our rebellious way that we continue to seem to be a bit rebellious on, but more about the special relationship and how actually we come from some phenomenal backgrounds. We do have some great shared history, and I'm more reflective on that day of the wonderful relationships we have, and just grateful for that.
And the students here do get to see the UK beyond the castle. They get to go on trips to other parts of the country as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. So part of our coursework is not just getting them integrated into the community, so items like community service, but also exploring and realizing there's so much to the UK. And so whether it's cultural diversity, whether it's geographic diversity, all of it, helping them see some of that. So, for example, our students quite often go on a day trip up to Edinburgh. We go as far south as York for a day trip. Some groups do kind of extended trips down to London or over to the Lake District. We want to take advantage of all of the cultural history and business or its related counterpart in the US. And so, for example, we had a social work program last year where we looked at different social work structures. So our students and our faculty worked with the People's Kitchen in Newcastle, and we're very engaged with that. So again, we really tailor it to whatever the coursework is, but then also, of course, you've got to learn about coastal castles. So we make sure to kind of include a trip and benefit from some of our local opportunities.
So we often meet former students visiting the castle who maybe studied here 10, 20, 30 years ago. Do you think being here creates a lifelong impression on students?
Do you know, I do. I think one way or the other, and for some students it's much more intense and impactful, but some people it's just, hey, this was an awesome experience. So I do, and it's wonderful to hear those stories. And even just as exciting is when we get students that were in the teachers training college that still occasionally come back. Now, that era is starting to thin out, but it's awesome to hear these stories. And the stories don't change much about the excitement, or there was a draft in this hallway, or quite often questions of, I dare say it, the Gray Lady. That, you know, everybody has their stories and adventures and their memories of their time here at the castle. And so, again, we are just so incredibly grateful to have this. We're grateful to Northumberland Estate, to their graces and their family for having us and having us in.
In terms of St. Cloud State University and its connection, is there anything that you would like people to know about, anything that we've not mentioned yet?
You know, we're a progressive university that is willing to be partners. We're willing to work with new systems. We're innovative, and we're excited and grateful. And both of those come together. And I think that's important when we think about our relationship and our time here. And so we're also committed to diversity. So whether it's having students from other countries come, over this last year, I've had students from Argentina, from Colombia, from the Netherlands. We've helped the NHS in providing housing for new nurses. We've welcomed Ukrainian student refugees that, again, we're trying to be engaged in all sorts of things. We're happy to be supporting and work with the Mr. Gay England and Mr. Gay UK and Mr. Gay Europe competitions. That all of that are who we are as St. Cloud, that we are a welcoming place. We're excited to welcome students and create new programs, and just also grateful to be able to be in this place and provide these opportunities.
And if people wanted to find out more about St. Cloud's, where would you suggest they look?
For more information about St. Cloud State, the best place to go look is our website, which is stcloudstate.edu. Within that, if you do a /ANIC, that will take you to more specific information about our program here at St. Cloud State at ANIC that provides that for you. The other exciting thing is for our alumni to go to our St. Cloud State at ANIC webpage, where they'll probably see their photo. And under ANIC alumni, we do have information about our alumni and opportunities, as well as we have what's called the ANIC Gallery, which is photos of ANIC students and spaces past and present. And so that's a really fun opportunity as well. So that's the best place, our website, stcloudstate.edu/ANIC, to find out more information about the programs and opportunities that we offer here at St. Cloud State at ANIC.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Wade, for coming to talk to us.
Just want to say thank you once again for providing this opportunity to talk with us. And our international office is led by a phenomenal Associate Vice President, Shahzad Ahmad, and our university president, who is just so incredibly supportive of this. So President Wacker is a phenomenal patron, really, not only leader, but patron of our program, and we're grateful for that. And as always, go Huskies!
We hope that whether you're a former, current, or future St. Cloud student, or from another part of the world entirely, you enjoyed hearing about the American University at Alnwick Castle.
To find out more, please visit those links mentioned by Wade.
If you enjoyed the episode, please do let us know with a review or a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and recommend us with a like or a share where you can.
Join us again in 2 weeks for a look at another part of Alnwick Castle and its history. Until then, I've been Deborah.
And I've been Daniel.
Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.